This is Professor Nading, and in this Math 068, we will be covering section number 1, working with our graphing calculator. In order to do that, you want to have your graphing calculator present, and also at the same time, you're going to want to have your section number 1 notes that can be downloaded from your Canvas site. So, what we're interested in doing in this particular section is jumping back and forth between actually looking at the graphing calculator and how its utilization takes place. And for some of that, I'll use my online graphing calculator. And for some of that, I'll use my physical calculator in front of us. So both being exactly the same, no matter which one. It doesn't matter if you're on a TI-84 or your TI-84CE like I use mostly. So when we talk about the graphing calculator, and you want to follow along in page 3 of your worksheet here, when we take our calculator, there's multiple primary keys on the keypad, as you can see on mine on the left-hand side. Anything that's a normal face button or face function is utilized on a top menu. Anything that's a secondary level uses a second function and is covered in blue. And everything that's on the third level is an alpha or a green button and a green character. The color actually depends on the calculator. However, though, at the same time, most of them are universal, at least for TIs. So if we go to student exercise number 1, and we take a look at what we're supposed to run through. So first of all, just simply following through to get the calculator turned on. We'll do that. The second access, we'll do some second accesses, and we'll turn off the calculator. So first of all, to turn your calculator on is simply just a function of pushing a button to get it moving to the on location. If I were to turn mine off, you can see mine's second and off, and I would enter that. This is my button, second, off. Would turn off your calculator. Mine doesn't clear away like that because mine's an application. And your on button is down here on the left-hand side. If I perform that function on what looks to be your calculator, so if I did second and I did off, my calculator's off. And if I just simply selected the on button at the bottom corner, my calculator will turn on. As was stated in the guide, anything is a second function, a blue. Like for instance, if I want this L1 down here, I would hit second L1. Anything that requires a calculator function requires the enter button. And right now you don't know what L1 does, and we'll talk about that later. Anything I want to clear is just simply clear away, and the button will make it go away. On my calculator, you'll see things light up in red as I click them on the left-hand side. So let's say, for instance, we want to go into the memory function. We would go to second, we would go to memory, and we would be in the memory management. We can use the wheel key to move around in the memory management. So if I move down, I can actually go to clear all lists, which is a function we use pretty frequently, so we should try it. So again, if we want to follow where I am, I'm on second, I'm on memory, I'm coming down to number 4, which is clear all lists. I have to execute that by hitting the enter button one time to get the command, and then when I hit it a second time, it tells me done. I'll always be told done when I have executed a command on the graphing calculator. So we've used our wheel key to move around. So our wheel key up, down, left, right. We can also adjust screen contrast if you want your screen to be darker or lighter. I tend not to mess with mine too much. However, though, it's the second key and the arrow up and arrow down. I'll show this on my regular calculator. So if I don't like how bright this particular function is, then it's the second key and brighter, or the second key and darker. Second, brighter, and second, darker. So if you want to adjust your screen as far as how bright it is for you, you can do that function. The enter key is on the bottom right-hand corner, and I've already utilized that once in my work down here, the enter key, to get something to take place. So for instance, let's go back again to the memory. And if I wanted to come back to this time clear entries, and I wanted to hit enter, and I actually want that to happen, I would have to hit enter and get that done signature. The lists are going to be a useful feature that we use all the time, and right now we've just cleared them all. And entries just happens to be all the things that was in the calculator. If I arrow up, previously there's nothing left because I got rid of all of them. If again you want to get rid of everything on your screen, just simply hit clear and the screen will go away. So now we're on page 5 of your handout. And on page 5 of your handbook, it talks about answers that do not show in many decimal places may need difficulty matching the output. Check your mode settings. So we're going to go check a mode setting real fast. So your mode button is directly next to second. You don't have to use a second function for that because it's in white, so you hit mode. Now, when we talk about the number of decimals in use, for instance, we're looking for where I am at float right now. If I float, I'm going to get all decimals represented in my number. If I tell it 2, it's going to round to 2 places, round to 3, round to 4, so on and so forth. Your calculator wants to be set to the float position. Now, let's say that you have a calculator that's set to the second position. I just hovered over it and I went to number 2. This calculator now, when I do whatever math I'm doing, so for instance, I'll do an example, 2 divided by 9 is a repeating decimal with 0.2 forever. But my calculator is only going to show 0.22 because I told my calculator to round 2 places. We don't want that. We want our calculator to give us all decimal places. We want it to be on the float option. So the float has to be black. Anything that's black on the menu is selected. So for instance, math print would be a good choice. Normal would be an excellent choice. Float would be a great choice. These down here really don't affect you too much right now, except maybe fraction type. And I would recommend fraction type to be on ND and answers to be on auto. ND, auto. Those are the ones I would recommend right now. And I'm going to quit being in this screen and get out of here by hitting not mode, but hitting second quit. If you're in a sub menu and you want to get out of that sub menu, then it's second quit. And again, that was right here in your directions. Second mode is your quit. Now we're going to talk about the delete and we're going to talk about the insert. Okay, delete and insert functions. So again, let's go to the calculator and let me clear what's in here. And let's say that I want to enter a number 123,654. And I want to add to that 2356. Okay. And let's say that I hit enter. And there's my sum of my 2 numbers. Now, first of all, let's say that I made a slight mistake. And let's say that that 6, that 1236 was supposed to be a 1237. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recall this line right here. Now, there's 2 ways to do that. First way to do that is to scroll up to that line until it's blue or colored, shaded, hit enter, and then automatically I can just simply use my wheel key and move back over on top of that 6, and let's change it to a 7. For right there, we can hit enter, and now we have a new sum with, instead of a 600 position, we have a 700 position. Now let's say that maybe that 6 wasn't supposed to be there at all. It was just supposed to be gone. And it was just supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 5, 4. Well, again, let's recall that line. And I'm going to use a second way to recall the line this time. Instead of arrowing up, I'm going to go to second, and I'm going to go to entry. Second entry will also do that for me, which is the enter button. I'm going to go back on top of that 7, and I'm going to pretend it never should have been there. And I'm going to use the delete key. The delete key is sitting right next to the mode key. I'm going to click it, and notice it goes away. I hit enter, and I get a completely new sum. Well, let's take that one step further. And let's say that over here on the 2, 3, 5, 6, there was supposed to be a 4 sitting in between the 3 and the 5. So again, let's recall our line. Let's get up to there. Let's get it one way or the other. And this time, let's arrow over on the 5. Now, watch what happens now. And usually what you have to do is you have to do this to try and figure out how it works. But look at me. I'm on top of the 5. On the 5, now what happens if I push the, not the delete, but the blue function of insert? Second. Now I'm on the insert function, and I'm putting a 4 in that value. Notice it inserted prior to the number that I had highlighted. Again, if I want a number before the 5, I have to be on the 5. If I want a number before the 3, I have to be on the 3. And the insert always inserts to the left-hand side. Delete is the standard function. Second is the insert function. If you use the clear function, you're going to be quite surprised because it's going to make everything go away. And we don't want everything. We don't want to retype because we get into some very large formulas and we don't want to spend our life retyping those particular things. Make sure you are familiar with the delete and the insert function. And again, always the clear if you just want simply to get rid of everything. So let's talk about the arithmetic keys, or the keys on the right-hand side here. So when we talk about the calculator's keys, and I'm going to clear everything I have here, these gray keys on my right-hand side are the arithmetic keys. Division, multiplication, subtraction. You would only use the subtraction between two numbers. The addition and the enter key is not part of the arithmetic. So let's say that I want 9 minus 5. Enter. Notice what happens, though, if I take 9 and I use this other minus-looking thing, but it's in a parenthesis, and I hit a 5. Now, we just did 9 minus 5, and it was 4, but now look, I get 45. That's because this white is not a subtraction key, it's a negative key. So in effect, what I just did was I took 9 times negative 5. If I did 9 times negative 5, I'll get exactly the same response. If I did 9 parenthesis negative 5, as arithmetic would say, I'll also get the negative 45. If I want to subtract two numbers, it's the gray key. If I want a negative number, it's the negative key. And you can see that you'll get an error if you happen to do this incorrectly. Let's say that I say, hey, you think you want a negative 5. Well, what it says, hey, take the answer and subtract 5. It won't allow you to call this a negative. It's always going to look for a number to the left and a number to the right when you're using this. If you get something that says syntax error, you've got a syntax error. You're using the wrong sign here, either negative or subtraction. Know the difference between the negative subtraction. In your page 6, it has us take a negative 2 and subtract a 6. So try that now. Take a negative 2, subtract 6, hit enter, negative 8. You could also do that taking commutatively negative 6, I missed the negative sign, negative 6 minus 2, and you'd also get the negative 8. What you can't do is do negative 6, negative 2, and expect to get an answer because it's taking an answer, it's subtracting the 6, and it's subtracting another 2. I said a syntax error. If you get a syntax error like this, where it says quit or go to, you'll want to choose the go to, because what you've done is you've grabbed a negative sign instead of a minus sign, and the calculator is going to tell you in a complex formula, you've made an error on what you have put into the formula. Let's continue. It says, although syntax errors may look intimidating, they're easy to fix, and I always recommend the go-to choice. The go-to choice always seems to be the best. It'll take it to where the answer is actually having an issue, and it will allow you to make a correction there. So let's do some squared functions. So in a squared function, this is the x squared button right here. It shows on your calculator. And on your actual calculator, it's right here by the 7. And that will always square something for me. Whereas in retrospect, if I want to raise something to something other than a 2, then I have caret key we refer to. So caret key, square key. You can use a caret key for a squaring, but it's not the most efficient thing. It says the caret will move up to the exponent. So for instance, let's try. Go to the calculator. Let's square something. Let's take an 8. Let's square it. We know that should be 8 times 8, and we get 64. Let's try that with a caret key. 8, caret key 2. You can see it's a lot more work, but it still gives the same response, 64. We'd use the caret key when we want to take something raised to a higher power. So maybe 8 raised to the third. We get 512. Here's a fun one. 8 raised to the second pi. So let's raise 8 to the pi. Let's hit enter, and we get that irrational decimal. We can raise numbers to any value. We can raise them to fractions. Matter of fact, we may even try one here in a second. So if we go back to our page, a couple of practice ones for you. We have to be careful when we put exponents in. Okay, exponents have to come into the position directly after the caret key. Okay, so let's try these ones in number 3. Let's take 4 to the 5th, 2 to the negative 5, and 3 to the 1/2. I'm also going to talk to you about the fraction key here for a second too. So let me diverge into the fraction world for one moment. Now, first of all, you're going to want to check your calculator and see where your operating system is. For instance, second, memory, number 1 is the about. I'm at a 5.4, which is pretty up to date. If you don't have a 5.3 or higher, you probably don't have the key I'm about to show you. I do have a link inside of Canvas that allows you to update your operating system. Gives you a nice little video. You have to download 2 pieces of software. One of them is the link system and one of them is the update, and you can get updated to what I'm going to show you. All your calculators should be up to date to at least 5.40 at this point in time. So there's 2 places to get a fraction on this calculator. One is my favorite, alpha x. Again, if you don't have an updated operating system, when you press that, you're just going to get an x. So this gives me a fraction, a numerator and a denominator, and I can clearly put in something like 4/7, and there's my 4/7. If I don't have that function, hopefully I'm at least in an operating system that'll allow me to do the second way. Alpha y equal. Again, alpha y equal. Number 1 is a fraction. Number 2 is a mixed number. Number 3 is for converting fractions to mixed numbers and impropers. And number 4 is for going from fractions to decimals. If you choose the number 1, you can still get to the fraction template. Again, maybe 8/9. When we're working with fractions, it's very useful to have that position of alpha x or alpha y equal. So let's try these examples that were given to us. We're supposed to take 4 to the 5th, 4, caret key, 5, enter. Let's try 2 to the negative 5, 2, caret key, remember, negative numbers, 5, enter. And let's try 3 to the 1/2. Let's use a fraction. 3, caret key, you get to your fraction either whichever direction. I'm going to do the shortcut, 1/2. Very nice utilization of that fraction. You're going to definitely want to have that available to you in upcoming term. It's number 4 says, notice the need for parentheses when raising numbers to negative powers. If there are no parentheses, then only the power will go to the designed or the designated number before the value. For instance, mathematically speaking and algebra speaking, a -3 without a parenthesis to the 4th is not the same as a -3 parenthesis to the 4th. Let's try that. So if I take a -3 and I raise it to the 4th power, mathematically, here's what, and I'll do the answer, it's -81. Here's what's actually happening. We're actually getting a -1, which is being multiplied by a 3, and another 3, and another 3, and another 3. That's actually what's taking place, and that's why it's -81. But if we use a parenthesis, and inside we say, hey, I want to raise all of the -3 to the 4th power. Notice the answer is 81. That's because what's happening is a -3 is getting multiplied by another -3, which is getting multiplied by a third -3, which is getting multiplied by one more -3, and we get 81. Parentheses will make or break your day. Make sure you're using them correctly. This is where a student, you, will do all of these problems here. You'll write your answers here somehow, some way. I would recommend just writing them on the paper. You can type them if you're computer savvy and you want to do that. That's fine. And these are the papers that will be uploaded to me when we get to this end of chapter 3. So at the end of chapter 3, you'll use something like Cam Scanner or Google Drive or something to scan these into PDF format, and these are your upload sheets, okay? But we only upload chapters 1 through 3 as a whole. All right. That's the end of chapter 1. Come back to me and visit me, and we'll start a whole new section, chapter 2.